How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is the disembodied voice of Nick, and this time I got my friend Luke here. Luke, what did you do last week?
How you doing, guys? I took second place at the Providence, Rhode Island Regional this past weekend. I got second place. It was big for me, first big top, and I'm very happy with how the deck performed. I was on pure Radiant Typhoon, so was the winner. So it definitely felt like the deck to play in the room.
All right, so do you have any shoutouts before we get into the deck?
For sure. Shout out to the rest of the Dragon Warrior squad, Zach, Alexis, Ben, and Zogby, no doubt. Everyone at Gotham City Games. You know, if you're ever on Long Island, it's the best local. And shout out to my boys in Seattle. I haven't seen you guys in a while, but if you see this, just know that I think about you a lot.
All right, so without any further ado, let's get into the deck.
All right, so nice and straightforward. The main deck three ofs. The first one is Eldam. It's my favorite way to start my turn, aside from Quick Play Crocea. But, you know, in my opinion, my combos, it gives me the most versatility. I like the way he allows me to play, you know, because you can go Special Eldam, Search Crocea, Tribute Crocea, Search, Chant, plus make Hala, and then you get to set up full combo because then you can make Hala, summon a body, get the negate live, and then Search Swen and keep playing. 3 Swen, 3 Crocea, all standard. You know, Crocea is insane. So much card value, all in the draw phase. Play around Droll, play around Veiler, you know, and you play other cards in the deck that let you play around things like Imperm. It's just the Bell that's really a problem. You know, Puruli is also a problem. Admittedly, I think I was only Puruli'd once or twice, but I opened hands that, you know, more or less didn't impact me too much. I think at most I gave someone 2 draws the entire tournament. 1 Meg Hala. I did experiment with more than one copy, but admittedly, as far as 2-card combos go, I do think this is one of the weaker ones of the deck. You can't always chain block this card, so an Ash or an Imperm could be really detrimental to trying to start your plays. 1 Phoenix, definitely a crazy card. Shuffling back into the deck is insane. And the 1 Varun. Love this card, love the Whale. Setting it up as early as possible gives you so much insulation that you just, you know, you can pretty much win the game if your combo goes uninterrupted or if your opponent can't interrupt you before you put this on the board. The craziest card I played the entire day was Sheena. If you're playing pure Radiant Typhoon, I think you need to be on as many copies of this card as your deck can afford. I know the winner didn't play 3 in the main, but did play them in the main, and this card just ate all day long. You know, breaking boards. It's Giant Trunade, but it's also like a pseudo Raigeki. So you get to use it modally depending on the deck you're up against. It lets you, you know, if you're up against a back row heavy end board like Draco Tail or a monster heavy end board like Tri-Brigade Yummy, either way you've got outs to the whole thing. And then the last of the monsters is the 3 Fua. Definitely good for me all day. You know, I didn't draw it every round certainly, but when I did, you know, sometimes just an extra draw or 2 makes your hand unbeatable going second. And that's it for monsters.
All right, sick.
Then moving on to the spells, all the quick play spells. 3 MST. Common's the only way to go. If you're playing anything other than commons, I don't know what to tell you. 3 Chant. Chant is probably my least favorite of the quick play spells, but it definitely just gets you there. You know, like Eldam, it's kind of your main starter, but I would rather save this for later and start with a different quick play as far as getting Crocea on the board or, you know, just starting your plays. I would rather have Chant for later. 3 Visions, crazy. Draw 2, always insane in any format. The discard doesn't even hurt you that much. There's so many cards you can open that you want to discard. Multiples of quick plays. The Varun, the Phoenix, you know, all these are the Mandate, all good discards. I took a little bit of inspiration from the list that top 16 to Dortmund. So I played 2 Ascendants. I am not playing the Manifestation, but I found in testing a lot that my grind game was affected if I couldn't MST pop this when I activated it. Or if my mandate wasn't necessarily live right away and I didn't have access to this for my follow-up, this was always the card I wanted to have in my hand heading into the next turn. The Reborn Crocea is definitely crazy, and even if you have to start your plays with it, if you open it and you know, any of the monsters, getting the Search MST means that it's always live. Then for the non-engine, 3 Droplet. I definitely prefer this over Crown. I do not know anybody, me personally, in my testing circle who's playing Crown. Droplet is a lot better into end boards, you know, if you're going second. Crown, in my opinion, is best when you're going first. You know, it's kind of like a really good Solemn Judgment where you know, it's best for stopping plays, not breaking boards. And then 3 Fallen the Virtuous is the last of the quick plays. I've seen lists playing 2. I totally get it. I found that 3 was insane the entire time. I was constantly recycling this card. and with the Ecclesia Synchro, the fact that it shuffles itself back and one of the fusions, and then you can shuffle the quick play back with Mandate means that you pretty much have this card perpetually in loop, which, again, is the reason you can play less of it, but I wanted to see it as often as possible because alongside other cards, aside from being like an impermanent Veiler Dodger, it was a quick play that was live to get like Crusade on the field. So you summon one of your monsters, it gets stopped, you pop it, summon Crusade. I played 2 Extrav. The list that I took inspiration from was playing the Shield Bearer instead. I do not own Shield Bearer. I'd like to test it, but I found that the blind card value from Extrav is just insane. If you start your turn with Vision, draw 2, get to summon Crosea, and then you first action in main phase get to draw 2 more, you're up 6 cards in card advantage. You should almost never be losing that game. Then finally for the spells, I played 1 Called by the Grave. Mainer side, it's good. And I played 1 TTT. This deck, as you can see, wasn't maining a ton of hand traps. I do think hand traps are the way to go with this deck. So, moving forward, I would cut some of these cards for Ash Blossom, specifically Called By, I think can be in the side, and Talents, I would swap. So these 2 at least would be an Ash Blossom. And then I'd probably cut the second Ascendance. If you play correctly with Ascendance, you never need the second copy. But for those situations where you don't have that choice, it's good to have 2, in my opinion. And then finally, the Mandate draws you cards, helps you kill, and as a negate, the fact that you make 2 to 3 Omni Negates on your turn for anything on the field, this card's just insane. It's probably my favorite card in the deck. Moving on to the extra deck, again for the extra package, I played 3 Varun. I never summoned a 3rd copy, but playing 3 I definitely think is correctly. The correct way to play, you always get access to a quick play spell with this card, which depending on your hand and the board state is pretty much always relevant with the way you play this deck. If you can search an MST and it's live, and you've got Varun in the grave, if you've got Phoenix in the grave, or if you've got Crosea in hand, you want to be able to start your plays. To win the Wind Charmer, again, I was on Extrav, so having 2 copies, just trying to keep 1 live. But this card's also crazy in the mirror. I've definitely summoned it twice in the mirror, just as far as the grind game is concerned, and having that second copy is definitely relevant. There are people only playing 1, and if you're in the mirror and you play 2, you will outgrind them. 1 Great Fly. Again, just to help you kill. I might have considered a second copy if I owned one, but I only summoned this once, maybe twice, to help me kill. The Sheena did a lot of work in that capacity. 2 Doom Eagle, a card I also consider very important in the mirror, that's why I played a second copy. It's good into Draco Tail, it's good. It's kind of good into Tri-Brigade Yummy. I got myself into a little trouble early on, round 2 or 3, where I shuffled back an opponent's Snatch You when I shouldn't have. I knew they had Marshmallow in hand. But if you have this to chain to the Synchro's effects, you're putting yourself in a pretty good position to break their board and to win the game. 1 SP Little Knight, just for the long-term grind game. You're very rarely making this early, but it's good to have. This extra deck is very free. I was actually thinking the other day about trying with a Harmonia package when that card eventually comes out. So, it's never bad to have this as a flex spot. 2 Albion, 1 Ecclesia. Going back, with Extrav, I would definitely up this package. There were a lot of times where I banished Ecclesia and an Albion. I don't believe I ever banished all 3 targets, but Fallen of the Virtuous is probably among the top 3 or 4 cards in the deck. You always want that card live. And even though you get all that blind value from Extravagance, if you Extrav for 6, banish all 3 of these copies, and draw Fallen of the Virtuous, you're very sad. I played 2 Totem Bird, same thing. 2 is good in the grind game. But again, just Extrav, you want to have access to the card. I very rarely make this as part of my end board, but it's definitely not bad. And then finally, I don't know how to pronounce this card, but the Phantom Fortress, the rank 9. I never personally made this card, the entire regional. It's a really good rank 9 to make generically if you've already used your Varun Negate, if you've played in a way that ends on Phoenix, and you don't want to just pass on it, you want to get him back in the graveyard. This is a great way to spend them. Sheena is also a 9, so you have other ways to make this card. Denies your opponent resources. It just interacts with your opponent in a way that's really hard to come back from. So, worth considering splashing, but definitely not necessary to play the deck. All right, and then for the side deck, it was, the philosophy that I tried to approach with the main deck, or that I would approach with the main deck, is that hand traps are really the best way to play this deck. You play enough quick plays with Vision, Chant, Fallen of the Virtuous, Droplet that the hand traps really help you play into a half board, which is where this deck is strongest when it's going second. So 3 Ash, which I would definitely main going back. It's Ash Blossom. Having it for the Perulias, it matters a lot. having it for Draco Tail matters a lot. You know, so it was good in the side. It was fine. I felt very comfortable siding it all day, but realistically, you want this in the main. I played 3 Purge. I tested a version of this deck that played it in the main. It's super unnecessary. You know, it feels really crazy having Ash and Purge trying to break a Draco Tail deck, but the truth is you're already playing a deck that breaks Draco Tail boards better than most. You know, having multiple MSTs, having Fallen in the Virtuous, like you have a lot of ways to dodge their traps. And again, Sheena, like you just don't have to stop them from getting the draw. If you give them a draw, but you still get to play, you know, 1-5 meta is not going to break your board. You know, it's not going to break your difference in winning that matchup. But denying them draws is good, so it was fine. I played 3 Nib. I was definitely worried about Tri-Brigade Yummy heading into the format before I had been testing without Nib, and my opponents at locals who were playing Tri-Brigade Yummy, Radiant Typhoon just were able to cook me. The deck has so many pushes, but no way to play around Nib. I think this card will probably define the next format just because so many people are playing slop decks. I played 2 Perulia. There are a couple of 2-ofs here in the side deck just because that's how my math ended up breaking out. Draco Tail plays in this deck a lot harder. Radiant Typhoon plays into this card more than Fua, but I just didn't have the room for the 3rd copy because of the other cards I wanted to play. But 2 Perulia, 3 Perulia, you know, playing 6 Charmies can be really rough, I find, especially in this deck where you want to open some combination of you know, your engine and a quick play as opposed to just monster cards. So 2 Perulia never came back to bite me. The 2 Droll. Same thing. You know, the mirror is really important to win. I think this card is decent into Tri-Brigade Yummy if you can hit them with it early. You know, if they go Eldum, Search Swen, and you control them, you know, their Yummy plays are going to be a lot weaker unless they open them if they can't get to Surprise. I think it's just really solid. And 2 Di-Fi. The reason I didn't want to play 3 is because I find this card a little bricky as far as this deck is concerned. Just like with the monsters, you want to open engine and quick plays. Otherwise, you know, you're going to get stopped more easily than you would otherwise. So if you brick on a bunch of, you know, hand traps and non-quick play spells, you know, you end up kind of dead in the water. But the deck performed great. I felt really good about it. I'm going to keep playing this deck moving forward and play Sheena. Do not leave Sheena out of your deck list. That's definitely the big piece of advice from this weekend.
All right, play Sheena. All right. Well, Luke, congratulations, dude. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you very much,
And
Nick.
this is just the first top of the year, man. We're going to get even more. Next time, we're getting first place.
You're
First
absolutely
place, bro.
right, dog. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll check you guys in the next one.
Have a good
Peace.
one.